Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer. Today we're here to talk about the top 3 domination civs in Civilization VI Rise and Fall. So this is sort of the culmination of all of the leader spotlights that I've been doing throughout the past few months. So I am not going to go too far in depth with any of the leaders in this video just because, well, I've already gone in depth on them. So I will make sure to link any of the leader spotlights for the respective leaders in cards in the video and in the description below. So if you are interested in learning more about any of these leaders, feel free to check out those leader spotlights. Also, I should mention that we do now have the Google Docs spreadsheet for all of the tier rankings that I've given for all of the leaders, because I know a lot of people have been asking for that, so that is in the description as well. And as a last thing that I should mention, just one thing is that these are not in any particular order. These are just what I think to be some of the best. I'm not going to particularly rank them, but I am going to talk about the pros and cons of using each leader, because no leader can necessarily be deemed the best in all scenarios, because each leader has its own strengths and weaknesses, as we talked about through the leader spotlights. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our first leader. So the first leader I would like to talk about is probably the weakest of the three. I know I just said I wouldn't give them a ranking, but I can comment that this one is probably the weakest of the three, and that is Cyrus of Persia. So Cyrus is a pretty good domination civ. He's definitely one of the best, but I still think that he's not the very, very top tier. He's very, very close to the top tier, but just not quite. So some pros for playing Cyrus of Persia are, for one, his immortals are very, very good units. So they have their ranged attack that is the same strength as archers. And in addition to that, they also have, I believe it's 30 melee strength, which is incredibly higher than archers. So what this means is that immortals are pretty much tankier archers that have the same strength as them, better melee strength, can melee attack, exert zone of control, and can take cities. So in the mid-game or early mid-game, whenever you get immortals, you will be able to steamroll through the people that are nearest to you, because you can have a bunch of immortals putting a city under siege, having some of them use range attacks so that way they don't lose health, having some of them use melee attacks so that way they can really just nuke the city down and then take it, and your entire domination game in that early mid-game is pretty much filled by immortals. You don't really need too much else other than immortals, so they are definitely one of the strongest unique units in the game, and for that I think it adds very much to Cyrus. The other big pro of playing Cyrus is that he has the Fall of Babylon ability, which is the one that gives him +2 movement whenever he declares a surprise war. He also gets +5 loyalty per turn in occupied cities with garrison units, and surprise war only count as formal wars for warmongering and war weariness. So Fall of Babylon is a very, very good ability. It's one of the best domination-based abilities in the game, and definitely the best Casus Belli-based ability, I think. I'm not even sure if you can necessarily call it a Casus Belli, just because Surprise War really isn't a Casus Belli, but that's kind of what makes it so good, is that there's nothing that you really have to satisfy to use this ability, and there's nothing that really penalizes you for declaring Surprise War, so you might as well. So you get that extra movement, which makes it very easy to get your troops around in the war. You get that +5 loyalty per turn, which is incredibly strong. It makes it so easy to keep cities once you take them. You're not going to have to worry about them flipping to loyalty, and it's going to make your domination game all just so much simpler, and that works throughout the entire game, so it is a very, very good thing, that +5 loyalty per turn. And in addition to that, the decreased warmonger and war weariness penalties are very nice as well, because it allows you to go to war more often. You know, maybe you can make peace and then declare war, and you know, the war weariness is not going to be an issue. So both of these things combined kind of make Cyrus a very, very good early mid-game domination civ, because what you can do with Cyrus is use that power spike from your immortals to go and just take your nearest neighbor, take a few of your nearest neighbors, and use that to kind of propel you into the later game. Even if you get a Dark Age or something of the sort, the loyalty is going to make it so that you're not going to struggle too much with running into loyalty issues and city flipping. So overall, I think Cyrus is a very, very good towards that early/mid game. But now let's go ahead and talk about some of the cons of playing Cyrus of Persia, and why specifically I think he's probably the weakest of these three civs that I'm going to talk about. So the first one is that Cyrus has no consistent combat strength boost at all. He really doesn't get any combat strength boost at all, because his immortal doesn't have any combat strength boost over a swordsman. It just has a ranged attack instead. So whenever you're fighting with Cyrus, you're never going to really be at any consistent combat strength advantage. Sure, if you're able to get things such as like the diplomatic visibility combat strength boost, or terrain modifiers or flanking bonuses or anything of the sort, you'll be able to get combat strength boosts, but at the same time, anybody else can do that. he doesn't really have any bonuses towards getting great generals. He doesn't have any, you know, just straight up combat boosts. His unique unit isn't any stronger than a swordsman. So that is one thing that sucks, is that whenever you're fighting as Cyrus, you're pretty much going to be on even ground whenever it comes to combat strength. So that is something that does kind of put him at a disadvantage against the other two leaders on this list. And it is something that actually kind of sucks when you're playing him. The other really big thing with Cyrus is that he has a relatively weak late domination game. So once you get late in the game, the only thing that's going to help your domination game is Fall of Babylon, because once the Immortals are gone, then that's a big strength of Cyrus, and strength towards his domination game that is gone. So really the only thing that you're going to be banking off of is Fall of Babylon. But luckily, Fall of Babylon is still incredibly good. You'll still be able to utilize that +5 loyalty per turn in occupied cities to make that a little bit easier. You can get that additional +2 movement from your surprise war to make things a little bit easier, and you can get those reduced warmonger penalties to make it so that not everybody in the game is going to be declaring war on you. But even so, Cyrus doesn't really have, I think just because he doesn't have that combat strength boost in the late game, or no boost to amenities or anything of the sort, his late domination game does suffer a little bit. And whenever you're playing Cyrus, you definitely want to make sure that you get a lot of ground early on, because if you don't, then you definitely will struggle later on. But that is Cyrus of Persia. He's definitely a very, very good domination civ, very, very good in the early/mid game, but he falls off a little bit later on. Let's go ahead and move on to our second leader. The next leader we are going to talk about is Shaka of the Zulu, and Shaka is a leader that has kind of had a reputation in Civ just throughout time for being a very good domination leader, and he definitely does not disappoint in Civ VI. So for some of the pros of playing Shaka and using him as your domination Civ are, for one, he has the Akonda, which is a very, very good replacement for the encampment. So what you get from the Akonda is that, for one, you can build it in half the time, so it has half the usual production cost of an encampment, which doesn't sound like it, well, I mean, it might sound like it's really good, but this really shows its strength in the very early game whenever you just get bronze working, because what it allows you to do is rush down an encampment very, very quickly. You can still get a barracks very, very fast, and then you can just start producing units like mad. So the fact that you can build the Akonda in half the time makes it so that you can get units out incredibly quickly in the early game and just rush someone before they're even able to get encampments up. So that is one of the best things about the Akonda. The other nice thing about it is that it allows you to build corps and armies outright, so you don't need the military academy. This can be very, very useful in the later game, because that's going to make it so that even in, you know, maybe newer cities that you haven't had time to build up to get military academies in, you can still get down an Akonda because you can build it faster, and you can just start producing corps and armies outright. So the Akonda is a very, very good district and very, very helpful for domination games. One of the other big strengths of Shaka are his corps and armies. So whenever you're going to be playing as Shaka, you're going to be able to get corps earlier. So you get corps at mercenaries and armies at nationalism, which are both a little bit earlier than the normal civic/text that you would be getting those at. But the other very nice thing is that you get an additional +5 combat strength to all of your corps and all of your armies. So +5 combat strength is a nice boost. So to get it to all of your corps and armies, that is incredibly good. The other nice thing is that you're going to be able to get some corps and armies for free whenever you capture cities with units, because his second ability makes it so that every time you capture a city, that unit that captures the city is going to be upgraded into a corps or army, depending on which civics you have unlocked. So if you have nationalism, it'll get, and also what the unit is. So if it's just a standard unit, it'll get upgraded into a corps, and then if it already is a corps, it'll get upgraded into an army, provided that you have the necessary civics. So with Shaka, you're able to get quite a few corps and armies. All of your corps and armies are going to have higher combat strength, and it is quite a significant boost as well, because +5 is, you know, nothing to be ashamed of. So his corps and armies are incredibly strong and incredibly helpful for making him stay consistently strong throughout the entire game. The other nice thing with Shaka is that he does have a loyalty bonus as well, so he gets +3 loyalty per turn for every garrison unit, or +5 if it is a corps or an army that is garrisoned in the city. So I think that this is very, very good. It definitely can be helpful, because unlike with Persia, the city does not have to be occupied for you to get this bonus loyalty. So even if it's a city that you have maybe founded anywhere, say you want to go found or just settle on another continent, you can go ahead, settle that city, and send maybe an army with that city or a corps with that settler, and then you can settle that city and you're not going to have to worry about loyalty too much. So this helps with both expanding and conquering as well. So overall, Shaka is just a very, very strong and consistent domination civ. He has the early game boost from the Akonda, being able to get that down so fast. He also does have the Impy, which I didn't really mention. The Impy is a pretty decent unique unit. I don't think it's one of the better ones, but it is definitely very nice. But he has the Akonda to help him in the early game, cores to help him in the mid game to get that extra combat strength boost. He can upgrade into those for free if he's conquering cities, and then those will be even stronger units. And then armies in the late game to help just propel him and just crush his opponents. So cores and armies, very nice throughout the entire game. And also he's not going to be struggling with loyalty too much because he gets quite a nice loyalty boost from his second ability. So Shaka, a very consistent civ. But that doesn't mean that there are no cons to using Shaka. So one of the cons is that combat strength-wise, he is technically weak before he gets cores because he doesn't have any combat strength boost before he reaches cores. The only thing that is good for him before he reaches before he reaches mercenaries to get his cores is that he is able to place down the Akonda a little bit faster. So that is kind of a weakness with him, is that if you're not able to get the bronze working very fast, if you're not able to maybe get the boost for it, I guess I should say the Eureka for bronze working, then he can be a little bit slow in the early game, but it's not too bad just because you still are able to get the Akonda down at least in relatively decent time if you want to rush it. So his early game isn't terrible, but it is definitely weaker than some of the other civs on this list. The other big con is that Shaka has no way to deal with maintenance cost or war weariness for that matter, so he is going to struggle because he doesn't really have any way to get gold. Like with Cyrus, you're able to use the Pairi da Eza to get a little bit of gold. He also has the bonus to his internal trade routes, but with Shaka, that's not the case, so you are going to be getting crushed a little bit on maintenance costs with no extra bonus to dealing with those. Same thing with war weariness, you have no way to get extra amenities, so it can become a bit of an issue. But overall, I think Shaka is definitely probably, like, he's tied with the other leader on this list for being the best domination civ in the game, and it's really just up to personal preference as to which you like better. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the last of the three leaders on this list, Montezuma of the Aztecs. So Montezuma is another one of those leaders that has just kind of had a reputation throughout the entire history of Civ for being a very good domination Civ, and once again, he as well does not disappoint in Civ 6. He as well with Shaka are probably tied for the best domination Civ in the game. So some of the pros for playing Montezuma are, first, the Eagle Warrior, which is just an incredibly strong early game unit. It has higher combat strength. It does suck that it is a little bit more expensive production cost-wise, but its bonus combat strength is so very good that you'll be able to just obliterate enemy units. You can also use it to get builders if you take them, because it has that chance to transform defeated enemy units into builders, which makes it so that you can build up your empire as you're building more Eagle Warriors and as you're conquering. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You can play both wide and tall at the same time with the Eagle Warrior, which leads into the second strength of Montezuma, and that is that he has just an incredible early game. He is probably the best domination early game because the Eagle Warrior is so good. It allows you to get a lot of extra territory. It allows you to build up the territory that you have through builders, and his early game is just so good. If you're able to get an early luxury as well, then you can get an increased combat strength, which is just going to make your early game even a little bit better, and he is just easily one of the strongest early game domination leaders. This kind of leads into some of the other pros for playing Montezuma, and one of them is that he's able to get extra amenities. So his luxury resources will provide one amenity to 6 cities instead of 4, so that's very good for combating war weariness, because as you get those war weariness negative amenities, then you're gonna, generally when you're playing Montezuma, you'll have enough to be able to still keep your citizens happy. So getting extra amenities is very good. You're incentivized to settle on, or not settle on, to improve as many luxury resources as you can, and this leads into the last pro for playing Montezuma, is that he has a very, very good combat strength boost. So with Montezuma, you get +1 additional combat strength for each unique luxury resource that you have improved in your territory. So this can be either if you've settled a city on it, or if you just have a builder make an improvement on that luxury resource. And this allows you to stack up just a ton of extra combat strength. Normally by the end of a game, you'll be able to get at least +6, +7, +8 extra combat strength for free just by having luxuries in your territory. So this works well in the early game because you can get a little bit if you can settle on a luxury very early on, so that can help your early game. It can help in the mid game as you expand. Maybe you've taken a few cities, you have a few luxuries in your borders, and then as you continue to expand, continue to war, you just get more and more luxuries, more and more combat strength, and it makes it so it's a very easy snowball with Montezuma. So Montezuma, I think Montezuma is personally my favorite domination civ in the game, just because of how good his combat strength boost is, how good the Eagle Warrior is, and how just consistent he is throughout the entire game for being able to just steamroll people. He does have some weaknesses, though, so some of the cons for playing Montezuma is that he really doesn't have any way to deal with loyalty issues. Unlike the other two leaders on this list, he doesn't get bonus whenever he a loyalty bonus whenever he has a unit garrisoned in a city. One of the other things that does kind of suck is that the Tlachtli is pretty much useless towards domination for Montezuma, and actually it's just kind of pretty much useless, overall. It's just not very good. That's his arena replacement that provides a little bit of faith as well. It's just so bad, and it pretty much provides nothing towards him. And much like with Shaka, Montezuma doesn't really have any way to deal with maintenance costs. He doesn't get any bonus gold, doesn't get any bonus trade routes, and, if you're going to war with people, then they're probably going to be getting pretty mad and not really wanting to trade with you, so Montezuma can get swamped by maintenance costs pretty easily as well. So thank you everyone for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for more Civilization VI content, feel free to subscribe. That was the top 3 leaders for domination, in my own personal opinion. Opinions can vary. If I had to give any honorable mentions, I would probably give honorable mentions to Genghis Khan and Tomyris, because they are also both very respectable domination leaders. But thank you for watching, and goodbye.